On this episode of Industry Relations, Rob and I discuss the recent news of REcolorado and its shareholders. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. Hi, everybody. This is Greg, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to our newest sponsor, CoreLogic. There has never been a time when it's been more crucial for real estate agents to demonstrate their value to their clients. And CoreLogic has all the tools for them to do so. One Home has generated over 17 million unique users who are exploring listing and neighborhood data. Their invitation-only client portal has also amassed 2.3 billion listing views, and their new photo AI search helps turn clients' visual aspirations into reality. For agents on the go, there's MLS Touch, which is their top-rated real estate app in the App Store, which gives agents instant access to critical MLS data wherever they are, and also can be branded for collaboration as a client version. Next up is Realist. Realist gives agents expert level analysis of properties, which helps their clients make smarter decisions and also can help them with their lead generation efforts. All this is underpinned by Matrix, the industry's leading MLS system. Currently, CoreLogic is rolling out Matrix 12, which will have a brand new interface that works perfect for mobile and desktop. Lots of great stuff happening at CoreLogic. Don't forget an update from your favorite rep, whether that's Rick, Todd, Kim, Lauren, or the rest of the crew, or visit their website. You can look at the link in the show notes. My thanks again for CoreLogic for sponsoring Industry Relations.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special off-site edition of the Industry Relations podcast. This is your co-host, the notorious Rob, on the call center setup, apparently. And as always, the fabulous Greg Robertson.
Hola, Rob.
I don't know what that was. So you don't have the murder board, so we're both not at home, apparently.
That's right, yeah. I'm up in the Seattle area visiting my sister's family with my family. So
right on.
That's before the boy goes away to New York, so we're trying to get all this in. And happy to be here. So
right on.
I mean, what a week, too. Good Lord.
I know.
It seems like every time I go somewhere, it's like fucking the whole industry blows up, right? I mean,
that's
crazy.
Kind of the norm, right? You know, what is it? Realtors always talk about, like, they go on a vacation and then 17 listings and, all these closings. Yeah. But I do want to apologize for the setup. I didn't bring my AirPods. I didn't, it's like, God dang it. So I'm just going to look like a dork.
I was smart enough to pack my little ATR mic. So
exactly. So that's fine. I'll just be dorky. But there's a lot to talk about, but I'm thinking there's one that's on your mind more than any other.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, let's flash back 4 years ago when, you were touring the country talking about, first of all, the divorce between the association and the MLS, but really of people buying an MLS or an MLS being sold in a sense, right? And everybody's like, that's crazy talk, Rob. That's crazy. Yeah. That's Black Swan, whatever. And lo and behold, the news leak went out, and I think I got credit for kind of like putting it out there on
You broke the story, man. You're the leaker.
I didn't know anything other than I heard a rumor that they might be being acquired, and then Real Estate News picked it up, and Inman and everybody else. But I'd gotten that kind of anonymous tip, and it lo and behold, it looks like it's true. Yeah. So a lot of drama going on at REcolorado. Yep. And I guess to summarize it is that, from my understanding, there's always been a bit of drama between the association shareholders and REcolorado, like in any MLS. Yep. Right. They've had a situation where, and this is the way that most, being on a few boards, I understand this now, but, they're shareholders, but a lot of times the shareholders don't really have a seat on the board, and they don't really have a control of that entity, the MLS, which is, that's right, being run like a business, not an association. But over time, with the advent of like realtor member only or MLS member only type of membership to the MLS, this has caused a little bit more friction. And apparently, the way that a lot of times these associations and MLSs solve this is that it's cheaper if you join both, right? So, if you want to join the MLS separately, it's more expensive. But if you join the association, it's less expensive, right? So, I don't think that's the case in REcolorado. That might be a little bit of why there's a little bit more drama here. But and this is all kind of maybe third hand or game of telephone. But from my understanding is that there was a contingency of brokers, maybe that were also board members, were going to try to buy out REcolorado. And then at the same time, it looks like, though, the shareholders, the two major associations, that would be South Metro and Denver Metro, got their own bid from another company, and they chose to accept that other bid. The rumors now are that that's a private equity company. I'm hearing it's GI Partners, which owns...
It's what?
GI Partners.
GI Partners, okay.
Yeah. Well, they own, I think there's a connection with a title company. There's a connection with RE Sure, the forms products there.
Okay.
Provider there. I've also heard of another, but that's the one I think that people that I've heard from multiple sources might be. This is the GI Partners. There's nothing stopping, that the shareholders can sell it to they want to. Now, so, that's where we're at now. Before I go on, I'm going to just get your comment on this.
Okay. I'm trying to think how much can I talk about? Let me put it this way. Since, I don't know, 2016 maybe? If you remember 2016, CMLS Las Vegas, I went on stage and took my career and kind of like put it on the roulette wheel, if you remember, right? Because that was the one I was like, there are too many of you, right? You're too poor, your governance sucks, and those are all my clients, right? It's like, but roughly around then is when I really, really started talking about MLS privatization. So for most people, like some of the listeners know, because they were like clients who hired me to come in and talk about MLS privatization. But this was one of my big things, because I thought that the MLS and the Realtor Association needed to get divorced for both of their sakes. We could go into all of that. But in order to do that, the thing I really thought was important to preserve was industry ownership of the MLS. All right. So if you think about just take a real huge step back, right? Big picture. The biggest development, I would say, since, we'll say 1990, right, was that the real estate industry lost control over the internet.
Right.
Right? And it's hard to blame them because, when the internet first came along, everyone just poo-pooed it, like, who gives a crap, whatever. So, but as a result, we lost control. Right. So now, as far as the consumer web is concerned, it's the portals, right? It's the Zillow, it's Redfin, it's right. But you remember, for about 10, 20 years, and you still hear some people say this, the NR sold us out down the river because they sold to Realtor.com.
Every day you hear that. Every day on Facebook, that's somebody saying.
Yeah, you still hear that. Okay, I'm like, good, but it is what it is. It's done. And you could imagine when Zillow and Trulia and Realtor, all these, companies came, they were like, give us your data, we have this, whatever. Imagine if the industry, instead of shutting them out and saying, screw you, or it said, you know what, this is a great idea, we'll do it. We would like to own 40% of your company. How different could that be, right? Not just this bullshit, licensing, whatever, operating agreement. No, we actually just want to own, But anyway, so fast forward, what I was really pushing with privatization was co-ownership between the Realtor Association and the brokers, right? That was really my big pitch. I'm sad to point out that never worked. I was never able to get that through, right? And a huge part of it was politics. Huge part of it is just ridiculousness. Huge part of it was the way that the bylaws were written among various MLSs. And, there's levels and levels of detail. Money was actually not the issue, man. It never was. But the thing I always pointed out to them was, this is the big thing, right? there's a lot of confusion in the industry about who owns what, who has power to do what. You know what I mean? So like, you think about like the I don't know, MLS boards, right? So like the regional boards, I would go in, I would talk to them, I would read their bylaws. Like, look, the association, whatever we'll call it, the 12 associations that are your shareholders, like they actually own it. It's theirs,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Okay, we wrote the bylaw so that the board is made up of like large broker representative, mid-size and small, and one person from each association. I'm like, yeah, you can do that. You can play all those games. At the end of the day, the shareholders own this. Okay. And unless you have some other like shareholder, shareholder agreements or other things, they can do whatever the hell they want. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Well, they
almost
can
like,
do as far as like ownership thing. Like a lot of times those bylaws and everything else is set up where the associations don't have actual management control of
correct.
the MLS, right?
Correct.
But as far as the ownership, if they want to sell it to somebody else, absolutely. But
Absolutely,
and I think
right.
that's at the heart of a lot of these things.
And that is what we're seeing with REcolorado happen. But even what I would argue is like, you could talk about they don't have the blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, except that like under corporate law, do you know what I mean? Like directors are answerable, they're fiduciaries to their shareholders.
Yeah.
Right. So I've always said like the way that MLSs and realtor associations set up. No, let me put it differently. Realtor associations, not-for-profit entities, right, could be set up however you want. They could be set up as political organizations, which is what they effectively are. Right. It's about representation and all this stuff. That's fine. But the MLS, a lot of times they were set up as separate for-profit corporations, right, owned by these associations. And in that event, like you can't just ignore corporate law. You know what I mean? Like, so I would always say like it's not set up well, and what you need to do is change things around to meet the needs. Now, what are the needs, right? So in some ways, like it gets down to that. The needs are ultimately brokers and agents and members, right, to get whatever it is that they're getting. You know what I mean? Like the MLS, so they deliver products and services to brokers and agents, right? So that they can go out and do business, right? Okay. I don't know what happened. Obviously, there's a lot of drama. What it looks like from public reports, right, is because I think Inman reported this, that REcolorado was trying to buy ownership back from the associations to be completely independent, right? And then that apparently went a long way and things were looking good. And then radio silence, right? I think the Inman story said February, right? Something like that. And then next thing they know, the association's like, we sold it to someone else.
Yeah.
There's going to be wrangling, right? There's going to be some drama around that.
You don't know if this is all just a higher level of board intrigue, right? That, some power struggles, and this is just all these. They're moving all these chess pieces just for show, in a sense. So that's one thing. The second thing is like, on one level, it's like, and I think I said this a while back, is like, well, why didn't I get the phone call? Maybe I would love to own a monopolistic SaaS company, right? A SaaS company that has a monopoly in a certain market. I mean, that sounds like a pretty good business to me, right? In a sense, right?
You would think, yeah.
So, but then having been on the other side of being acquired by a private equity firm or a firm that was owned by a private equity, I know what the process is, right? So what happens is, they send over a bunch of spreadsheets, right? And okay, start filling this stuff out because we need to understand the business a bit more. Well, how motivated do you think that anybody from REcolorado is going to be like, to do that, right? Yeah. So that's one thing. The second thing is they're not operating in a vacuum. There's Iris in Boulder. There's other associations and out there where the membership could vote with their feet, meaning the brokers could get together and say, well, first of all, are the brokers, to me, there seems to be a little bit of concern that there might be so complacent they don't give a shit who owns it, right? So there's that. But if they actually do want to, like, because I think REcolorado put something out like, hey, we wanted this to be locally owned, not by some private equity firm. But if the brokers want to, they can go join another association very easily, and just bring their services over there and start operating there, right? So that's a no, you don't think so?
Kinda.
Why?
Because I'm trying to think how to. Because let's say you do that, okay?
Yeah.
You bring all of your, so say you're a broker and REcolorado, you're not happy with it, so you're going to go join Iris. Okay. Think about what the impact to your agent day to day looks like. Right. And even if the systems are the same, so there's no interruption there, the big issue is going to be you don't have historicals. So your agents can't run comps.
Well, I mean, they already have a data share, right? So there's something still in place with that.
Again, so I don't know the details of data share, right?
Right.
But what people think about, what people focus on too much. But I guess
the shareholders could just shut that off, right, at any point, I'm sure, whatever the agreement says, right?
Right. So the way I look at it is like, yeah, in theory, that is all possible. And it's something I've talked about with, during my consulting practice for MLSs and such. But the issue is historical data, right? So from that standpoint, I will do something. I will do this. How about that, right? Because I'm trying to think. There's certain things I can't really talk about. There are certain things I can talk about. What I will say is that every broker who is listening to this right now should be very, very familiar with something called PDAP.
Right.
It's the Participant Data Access Policy. This is an official policy of NAR. It's an official policy of every MLS in the country, right? Which says if you request your own data from the MLS must give it to you. Okay. You can't request somebody else's data, but it's just your data. The MLS has to give it to you. I think every broker should get very, very familiar with that. Right. And the reason for it is, it's possible that this REcolor thing is a one-off, right? And that's the way I think most people are sort of interpreting it. It's a one-off, whatever, right? Here's the thing, man. Since like this week, I have certain contacts and friends, kind of in the financial side of things, as well as, obviously within the industry. I don't know if you heard this, but a major MLS, we'll call it a top 25 MLS, apparently, right? A couple of years ago was attempting to acquire a neighboring MLS and went to private equity, went to investment firms to say, hey, here's our plan. We're looking for some money, hook us up so we could go make this happen. And was just basically didn't go anywhere. Like, no thanks, we're not interested, get out of my face, right? Supposedly, ever since this news hit the wires, hit you, Vendor Alley, his phone's blowing up from private equity firms going, hey, we looking to, you need some money?
Yeah, I was talking
we're
to
interested.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody, and the analogy I used is like, this is kind of like the 4-minute mile, right? Once somebody breaks it, it's like, okay, now this can be done. People are doing this, and it becomes the next thing to do, right? So, it's almost like, okay, you put AI in front of your company, and now you're hot shit right now,
right? Because here's the thing that you could maybe speak to as well, because you were acquired by a company. Like the private equity playbook, right, is very simple. They identify some underpriced asset, right, undervalued asset. They buy it. And then they maximize the value of that asset.
Yes.
Right.
And they go to sell it somewhere else.
Then they go sell it somewhere else or whatever it is. Okay. Here's the thing. From a private equity, playbook standpoint, there's nothing easier to monetize than a local monopoly. Right? I mean, literally, there's nothing easier to monetize. Like, so let me get this straight. You have this this MLS thing, right? Every single agent within whatever 7 counties has to belong to this. What do you charge today? Oh, we charge $35 a month. Why are you only charging 30? Well, it's a member benefit, you see. And then, I'll tell you what, why don't we take that off your hands? We'll give you 10 million, 20 million, right? Okay, cool. And now we're going to make that 300 a month.
I mean,
how many agents are leaving? You don't have a fucking choice, dude.
No,
like,
it makes so much sense. I mean, it makes so much sense. I did this thread on Twitter, and it was just half joking, right? It's like, how would I do it if I was like the private equity company? Number one is I said, there's 522 MLSs out there. 251 of those have less than 500 members apiece. I would go buy all of those.
Sure.
Right? I would consolidate them under one MLS system. They'd have one president, right? One staff, one whatever, right? Then I would go after kind of getting that systematized or process in place. I'd look at the chunkier ones, the bigger, the top 25, as you talked about. And my target would be 550 members, agents within those things, which to me is going to be about half of what the total realtor membership at that time.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to Virginia, and I'd knock on Andy Florence's door and says, here they are. And he would write me a check, and the rest would be history, right? So, I mean,
he would write you a check for like 5x your investment. Yeah.
I mean, it would be, he knows how to run that, right? Or some other firm. It's just getting that together. Now, somebody I really respect, and I was kind of positing this thing, is like, well, the best way of doing that would be in private, where it'd be very difficult to round up all those MLSs you want. So it'd have to be kind of clandestine, and that would be very difficult because, as we know, this business, everybody talks, right? But there might be something there to that, and but here's the other thing: is that at that point, it's an EBITDA game, right? So they're just gonna like. So forget this MLS that you thought was going to have this department and that department. You think that MLSs are running lean now? Oh, wait till the private equity guys increase your membership dues by four times, which we've been talking about doing anyway. And then, this amount of services drop down to zero. MLS of choice, screw that. That sounds expensive to me.
Right.
We're just going to have one for all of these guys, right? So, I mean, better yet, even thinking more about this, I would buy one of those MLSs that have their own software. So they own the software. They don't have to have an outside vendor. So it'd be like, either like an REcolorado or a Claw with Vesta, or the guys up in Portland, RMLS with their own software, or let's say Real Tracks. I mean, people that already have their own kind of thing, because then they really are in control of that. They don't have any; those outside expenses go away to nothing, right? So it does. I mean, on the surface, it's just so crazy. But that being said, it is risky, right? I mean, because there is competition. This business is crazy. And then, the feeling right now is like there's not a lot of investment going into prop tech, right? And I know there's money sitting out there. Maybe this is where they think that they can deploy. Because
like I said, it's just that one MLS CEO, that experience. So maybe there's something happening there. What I will say, though, is I don't think we can underestimate the extent to which this drama out of Denver is laying bare the tensions and the problems that people like you and me have known for at least 10 years. Right. The fact that the association and the MLS do not get along. And the brokers are kind of like on the outside looking at the whole thing, like, what the fuck? And they're the ones. It's funny. So I'll say this. There's on Twitter, somebody asked, like, how is it possible that an association can do this without member approval? And I'm like, you have a real misunderstanding of what being a member of an association means, like what kind of power that gives you. So, for example, we've like, this has been a common thing. Being a member, go ask your association for financial records, see how far you get.
Right.
In fact, what's her name? Andrea out of Chicago. She got sued by her own association for requesting financial records, and she was on the finance committee.
Yeah.
Like members seem to think that they have all this power and all this right. Well, I'm a member and y'all got shit. You don't have any rights. You have no power. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So unless you can read your own bylaws and all of that, but sort of the bylaws I've ever seen, the NAR sort of model bylaws for associations and realtor MLSs, you really don't have a whole lot of say. So I think what's shocking for a lot of people is the fact that the realtor associations, who are the shareholders, felt like they could just sell it to anybody, right? And the members, the brokers, the agents, they have no say, right? They have no, yeah, you're right. So it's almost like this red pill moment, right? Where a lot of brokers and agents felt they were thinking, oh, this is our association, this is our MLS, and we have all the power, we have control, we have say. And then it's like the scales fell off there, kind of like the debate moment that happened. Like, it's almost like all of a sudden people saw, oh my God, that is not the world I was living in. Yeah. Oh my God. Actually, the reality is what the association board and the whatever decides, that goes. And my feeling about it is immaterial, right? Same thing with NAR. Like, people think like NAR, we represent. Do they represent you? Do they?
Yeah, I mean, it is a red pill moment. I mean, I think that. I mean, look at it this way: the largest, let's take one of the largest brokerages in that MLS, right?
Yeah.
Who maybe is part of like Realty Alliance. The next meeting they're going to go back is like, hey, maybe I should have realized this, but I'm going through this now. This is what happens. You guys need to go and figure out what's going on in your situation, because this could happen to anybody.
Right.
And, again, some of these larger brokers, if they don't like this, I know what you're saying about the comps and the historical data, but I mean, if the largest brokerage in REcolorado decides to vote with their feet and go, we're going to this MLS instead of you, I mean, as the acquirer of that, I mean, there's still a lot of risk here. I think, again, this could be just some board palace intrigue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get a leadership or a structure change. And
who knows? Yep.
Who knows? Right. It's just crazy.
And what's fucked up, dude, is like, again, in my 13 years of doing consulting work in that space, there have been a few times that I've run into that just filled me with despair, right? Because it wasn't even anything like logical or rational in any way, shape, or form, right? It wasn't even because, look, you could have some scenario where maybe the association has one vision of what is good for their members, and the MLS has a different vision of what's good for the subscribers, and the brokers have a different vision. But it's like, it's almost like an honest dispute, right? But I've seen scenarios where like really important initiatives were torpedoed because of like personal vendettas.
Oh God, yeah.
Right.
Or personalities.
Or just internal politics. Like the current chair is a broker who 5 years ago screwed me over on a deal, so I'm going to oppose anything that the current chair, like shit like that. Right. So I don't know what happened there. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
The other thing that I see is, I mean, it's tribalism a lot of times too.
A lot of times.
But like what I see sometimes is that the MLS, let's say the exec there, has built together a great team, right? And they're really operating on all 4 cylinders, all 6 cylinders, all 8, whatever, and doing well. And they want to expand. They want to build their own tech and. Yeah. Or maybe they're already building their own tech and get
whatever
better.
it is.
But they need to add resources, and to do that they need to grow, right? Or they need to do these things. And this MLS exec now goes back to the associations, right? So he's got the way I would analogize it, he's got a team that can make a Ferrari, and he wants to take this thing out for a spin and really go for it. Maybe put it on the circuit, maybe do something.
Yeah.
And the MLS is like, well, why can't you be happy being a truck? I just like the MLS, the way it is. Why do you have to do all this other stuff? Why do you have to, be this and be that? Can't you just be that truck that we all love? And that's a real problem, right? Because especially those MLS leaders are doing a great job keeping a track of what's going on in the industry, wanting to move forward. And their kind of shareholders are just like, oh, we just want a place to go to get some comps and do a search, and that's it. Why do you have to do all this other stuff? And that's just, I can imagine how frustrating that's going to be for a lot of
course, and that's endemic. But so I think it's really interesting, man. I do want to point one thing out though. When you talked about like, okay, well, REcolorado, the largest broker, leaves, it's a real problem. Hey, man, we have a situation where there's probably a criminal conspiracy going on in San Diego that's in control of the MLS and the association, and they can't leave. Right. So I mean, so that's how hard it is to leave. Like, you be the largest broker. If you can't leave that, like, what can you leave? So I think this is a real red pill moment for brokers, right? And the fact that it's coming at a time when all of the frustration around, or all the chaos around the MLS, right? You know, with the NAR settlement, the lawsuits, the Department of Justice, who the hell knows? And that's the reason that the two associations gave for selling off.
Yeah, but
the
that
MLS,
sounds
right?
a little bit not honest.
No, I don't know whether it's honest or not, but that's the rationale they gave. Okay, so the issue becomes, okay, in the midst of all of this, it turns out the brokers are going, apparently, actually, I have no control. That's the red pill moment, right? And I feel for him. The only thing I can say is, you know, like, learn about PDAP. That's number one, right? And number two, give me a call. It's like, you know, I have some thoughts. But it's some, and you know what? Here's the thing. The other thing that I think goes without, that's kind of getting lost in the weed a little bit here, is I feel for Gene and the staff over at REcolorado.
Yeah. How about it?
And it's kind of what you mentioned. You built a Ferrari, and right. And like I know Gene, like I know that staff. It's they're one of the best kind of in the industry, and this is something we've talked about for as long as we've been doing this podcast, right? We know that the staff, the CEO, knows what to do, and I've just personally run so many situations where they're just stymied. They're just not allowed to do what they want to do, and it isn't because the brokers and agents don't want them to do it. Right, that's the market. Those are the customers that the MLS wants to serve. It's some internal politicking. It's some bullshit.
The fear of change too. It's like, well, it's always been this way.
Right.
Why can't we just be this way forever?
Right.
You know, why do we have to, like, you know? It's just all over the place there, right? I mean, there's different. Yeah.
So here's the good news. I think the good news, if there's a silver lining, I suppose, is this move, I think, has lit a fire under a whole bunch of people's butts. And I think a lot of associations, a lot of MLSs likely are just kind of discounting it. Like, oh, this is a one-off, right? It's a one-off, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a one-off, guys. You know, like, private equity is very, very good at making money. They're very, very good at identifying opportunities. I wouldn't be shocked if we're just, you know, like,
yeah, but I would also caution associations who are listening to this also, right? You know, there's the devil, you know, right? And, you know, when you let somebody else in the door, you might have some problems with your MLS, you know, the MLS staff or the way it's structured or whatever else. But for the most part, these people that are professionals, have been in the business. They ran a couple of their MLSs before they got there. If they're a larger one, they're in the community. Mm-hmm. Right? When you invite private equity in the thing, they're only concerned about really one thing, and that's EBITDA, right? And that's getting this thing that is, and you gotta be ready for, like, if a private equity person comes in the door, or a company, the leadership is going to change. The ownership of that's going to change, you know, in 5 years.
Sure.
You know, 5 to 7 years is a window for them, and now the devil you knew then, which you accepted, now it's a devil you don't even know that's out in the future and what that looks like. So it's I'm not disparaging private equity. I mean, it's a valid business thing, but I mean, you're substituting people that they're in your community, that care about what they're doing, for operators that care about EBITDA more than anything else, right? And that's what you have to worry about.
Here's the thing. Do you think associations genuinely care about that?
do they care about? I think.
Do you think they really care about serving the brokers and agents in their local community?
I would hope so. Yes.
Hope so is not the same thing as do they actually care. Here's why I'm bringing this up. All right, you think that the two realtor associations sold REcolorado, it's all poo poo, and they're like this, the lawsuit, blah blah blah, right? Here's the thing. I think the bigger trend, what everyone, you and me included, what everyone kind of sees coming is decoupling, right?
Right.
Step one was prohibiting the realtor MLS, prohibiting the MLS for doing offers of compensation, right? But clearly there's a decoupling coming because the DOJ knows the NAR has all this power because they control the MLS. The MLS, the enforcement arm of the NAR's policies, right? Okay, why do realtor associations own the MLS, number one, right? And why do they hold on to it?
Well, I mean, in a sense, this is the argument you hear from them. We invented this. We put this together because we needed this as a tool for us, right? So it's like, and any
it's a member benefit, right?
Yeah, it's something that we birthed, right? And you're talking about separating this stuff. It's like, well, we constructed and designed our organization for that entity to be part of us, right? So,
but what I mean is, like,
that's the argument you hear. Anyway.
Sure, but the reality is, if the association no longer owned and no longer required, if it was not part of it, we know what would happen to subscriber counts. I mean, member counts.
Well, you say that, but I mean, this could be, and this is another really smart gentleman that I talked to. It's like, the way he had phrased it, I think, was something like, this is the first time associations get to really emphasize their value proposition, right? Where before it was, since MLS, they were together,
yeah.
They really didn't do that. Now it's like, okay, what makes you special? That's let's make that happen. Right?
Yeah. So, and whatever they come up with, it's not going to be appealing to 100% of the agents out there. It's just not. Right.
Yeah.
It might be appealing to 30%, and that would be high. Like, whatever you come up with. Do you know what I mean? So my point is, like, the association got to this position that it has today, and its revenues and all the power and all of that because it owns and controls the MLS. Okay, the DOJ is coming in to smash that. The plaintiffs' lawyers are coming in to smash that. The decoupling is going to happen, right? It's just a matter of time. If you believe that as an association, then you're way better off selling that asset off today, right, for more than you would get 3 years from now. I mean, imagine the DOJ comes in and smashes it anyway, right? And now it's like, okay, now I would like to sell my MLS to a private equity firm. It was like, we're not interested because it's fucking meaningless. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those. So if you're an association leader, you do actually have to think about, do I want to sell this?
Right.
Right. And the whole argument about, well, it's because you genuinely care about the local marketplace. Look, man, I'm sorry. Over the last 10 years, I've not seen a whole lot of action on the part of the Realtor Association that shows me that they genuinely care that much about the local marketplace. And, I just don't see it, right? So, and that has to do with the code of ethics, the competence to raise the bar conversation, all of it. Seems to me the local association and they all care about is how do we keep member numbers up? And the MLS is the primary vehicle for doing that.
The cynical way of looking at it.
It's a cynical way of looking at it, but show me the contrary, right? Show me, like, you look at what the local association typically, on average, spends on, let's say, something like professional standards versus realtor prom. I'm telling you, I've seen more than one local who spends way more on realtor prom and the ceremony, the accession ceremony than they do on, like, education and training. That's just fact, So given that, maybe it's time for the association to think about, let's just get rid of this asset before it loses value.
Yeah.
And the issue then is going to be for the brokers and agents to be like, is this something we want? Because it turns out you ain't got that much power. You don't control this. You thought you did, but you don't.
Yeah.
Right?
And then, let's look on the outside here, just to pull on the thread you said in the beginning. Now Zillow, right? dealing with, the association structure as it now, the MLS structure is now a private equity owns the data. Oh, you want this data, do you now, right? Mm-hmm. Now somebody with a real business acumen, right, wants to kind of, really, wow, okay, well, that's interesting. I mean, you're a member, you're a participant also. Well, let's get rid of that rule right away, right? I mean, they're going to speak business very plainly, right?
Yep.
And they're not going to have any loopholes or anything like that, right? So it's for the vendor community, it ought to raise some concerns. It could be, again, you could look at it.
It could be great.
Maybe it's a better. It could be great,
right? It could
but
be
again,
terrible.
it's the devil, right? It's the devil,
I suppose, but depends on the private equity.
Right? I don't think they're that different. I mean, I think they're about increasing EBITDA and selling it and flipping it. I mean, that's what they do. It says the description right on the tin. Right?
Sure.
This is what we do.
I will say this. The industry's already lost control over the public web, the consumer web, right? The portals have won that war. I think if the industry loses control over the MLS, it's over. That's almost how I say it. Not over in the sense that it's going to go away. I'm just saying it's over in the sense of, at that point, hey man, if you don't control the MLS, you don't control the public web, the portals, the consumer web. What is it you think you control? Right?
Yeah.
So I really don't want to see that happen. It's all of my privatization things that I was doing, back in the consulting days, was all premised upon the industry maintains control and ownership, right? But through privatization, we could bring rational business practice to this and not have I'm not approving that because I hate the president, I wanted to eliminate that shit and make it more. But if we're going to go down this way and associations just start selling off to private equity, you're right. I mean, private equity they're going to be real rational. They're going to be real sort of cold, hard cash type of approach to things, except that now the industry's lost control over the MLS. And if you want to see what that looks like, just look at commercial real estate, right?
Yeah.
Those guys don't control the MLS and they don't control the consumer web. That's what it's all kind of ultimately going to look like. I don't want to see that happen. I don't think you do. I don't think the people we know in the industry want to see that happen. So then the question is, okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do instead? Right.
It is an interesting thing because, a lot of these guys, it's they want to zag when everybody's zigging. Right. So, and there is a lot of chaos going on, and that's when it's the best time to kind of go in there and do this. I mean, I don't think this per se, even though the associations are because of all this, I think I think they said in Inman where their membership was declining. I don't think it was in really regards to the lawsuits. I think what it was is the MLS only membership was increasing because again, they're separated.
Okay.
Right? Not like other ones where it's cheaper to join both, right? So they had a different thing there. Maybe there's some compromise here where everybody can be happy, but if they've gotten to this point, there's some bad blood going on. And
of course. That's my point. In just about every MLS I'm aware of, there's a lot of bad blood between, man, look at Las Vegas. There's literal drama going on in Las Vegas between the association board and the MLS board, and except that the association owns it's really weird, but that's what happens when you have politics, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the big thing. Do you want the MLS to be ruled by politics, or do you want it to be ruled by business?
Yeah.
Right. And the brokers are starting to wake up to the fact that it's ruled by politics, not business. And they're starting, the red pill moment is realizing, actually, I don't have any power. I can't stop this. Right. And my suggestion with that is not the way things are set up right now, but that's why you need to learn about PDAP and then give me a ring. That's how I see it.
And I think associations are going to also, they got to maybe put some politics aside. And I mean, it's like the old song.
They really
you
should.
Love something, set it free.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they may not more freer than they are now. Right. So, and that I know a lot of associations are not going to like that.
Yeah, and I guess the way I kind of see it is, as an association, I don't know that selling off the MLS to private equity was the right move. I don't know the full story.
It says a deal's in works. Nothing's been finalized. I still think on this case, it is some sort of palace intrigue, and these are just chess pieces.
I don't know, man. Like if you have,
being rattled.
If you have an LOI and. But didn't Raymond report when the closing date?
No.
No? Okay.
Not that I remember.
If there's an LOI in place.
Deals like this go, I mean, again, from personal experience, my deal could have been shut off 2 weeks before it was supposed to close for some little item. Right?
Sure.
I mean, people can walk away from
Was there a breakup fee?
No.
So remember when CoStar and broker public portal and all of that?
Yeah.
Right? And there's a breakup fee?
I don't even know if that was in there. I think that maybe Homes.com just gave it to him.
I'm pretty sure there was a breakup fee provision.
Oh, there was,
right?
Okay.
Most LOI, something like this, if it doesn't go through, somebody's paying somebody. Right. So.
But you have, it's a weird thing because the associations own the MLS, but the MLS is a business and it has all their financials and everything run separately.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard for the association to say, okay, you guys cooperate with this company we want to sell you to. I mean, that dynamic is going to be.
Oh, it's going to be weird, but like, yeah, you could do that, or you could get sued for breach of fiduciary duty.
Yeah,
it's up to you.
I mean, it's. You know how things are. It could take a long time. It could be an easy.
Oh, no, I understand.
It's like remember whenever you would have the auditors in, you'd put them in the coldest conference room in the building so that they would be so uncomfortable they just want to get out of there. I mean, there's techniques like that, right?
Yeah, so. Yeah. But look, as soon as you close, you obviously replace the board, right?
Well, you replace everybody, right?
No, you replace the board, and then the board replaces the staff.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like ultimately, man, shareholders own the damn thing. It's their property,
Yes, damn.
So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of drama. We'll see. There's more might come out. I haven't read the LOI.
Predictions.
What?
Predictions. Does the sale to a private equity go through? Yes or no?
I think yes.
I say no. I think there's going to be a compromise between the entity of REcolorado and their ownership.
I don't even know what that means. What's the compromise between you and the owner?
Maybe again, maybe they change the fee structure that it's cheaper to join both, and therefore solves the declining.
But what I mean is, Greg. So before you sold it off to. Right. I mean, you are the owner of WR. You and Dan were the owner of WR Studios, right?
Yeah.
So let's say one of your people is like, we need to negotiate, Greg. You'd be like, I'm the owner, motherfucker. This is my company. You don't like it? Get the fuck out.
But again, it's still not. You're thinking.
Get your mic closer.
But you're thinking it's still operating in a vacuum. They could right now, being the owners, the associations could be contacted by a lot of local brokers going, this is ridiculous. We're going to fight you on this and that. And I mean, they might be getting pressure from a lot of other sources where it's going to end up be like, okay, this is going to be a big pain in the ass.
Maybe.
The private equity guys might say, okay, in order to do this, we're going to have this breakup fee and this and whatever. There's going to be a lot of other things where they're going to go, well, shit, this is going to be more hassle than we thought it was going to be. Maybe if we could just get some agreement from these guys to do this, right, we'll say we're not going to sell, and these guys will do this for us.
Maybe
some sort of
maybe.
I mean,
yeah, maybe. I'm just saying, and this is where I'm not sure how much I could talk about. I do know some things. I'm just saying, I think it probably happens.
Well, this is perfect. You think that it's going to go through. I don't think it's going to go
Right,
through. So it's,
right.
you know, we'll see what happens, right?
Steak dinner time.
Steak dinner. Okay. All right. No steak dinner. All right.
We can make it like Korean dinner, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
because you're going to come to Vegas soon for.
Dude, you got the. You've always treat me well with the nice little hookups there, as far as all the places you know.
Yeah, I think so. My sense is I think it goes through, and I think we see what happens after. You know, I think this becomes a template for what ends up happening kind of industry wide, probably into 2025. Right. But yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, I've heard rumors that this could be simply like a Return of the King type scenario. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like it's more of the ownership change really leads to a change of management.
Well, that could be a compromise. That could be one of the compromises. I mean, you don't know what the compromises are. I certainly hope not, but
sure.
Yeah.
So the fact is, like I said, the fact is the MLSs. So this would be like the big takeaway. So let's go through big takeaway. What are the big takeaways we learned from this? Number one, the MLSs think they're independent, right? And they're not.
I don't think they think they're independent at all. I mean, I think they struggle with these things all the time.
But come on, dude. Like my point is, when you think about like the MLS, especially the regional MLSs, like REcolorado, right? I think the MLS institution, the staff, the bureaucracy, the board, they all think we're independent, right? And we make our own policy, we make our own rules, and we're like a power unto ourselves, right? So I think the big wake up moment should be: you're not independent. You have owners, and the owners own you. So let's take Bright MLS as an example, right? Like it's Bright MLS, right? It's Brian Donnell, and like, you know what I mean? Like they have amazing staff and a team and an office and all that stuff. Well, Bright's owned by the associations who formed it.
And Brian wasn't the original CEO there either, right?
He wasn't the original CEO. Like what I mean is like
there's a struggle that happened there for sure.
Sure, well, I'm just saying if those 26 shelter associations, or whatever the number is, right? Whoever the shareholders are, if they decide to sell, right, their asset, they own it. It's their property. If they decide to sell it to CoStar or whoever, there's not a whole lot Brian or anybody can do about that.
Right.
Right. Now, is it going to happen? Of course, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying from an MLS standpoint, I think this is a wake-up call of, oh, actually, we have owners.
Yeah, I mean, again,
but,
I don't.
Like we're not
I
like an independent company.
No,
you know.
But I just disagree a little bit with your premise there, because I think they all know that. What I think the wake-up moment is, that they could bite back, and before maybe they got their way. They got their way more than more their way than the ownership way before. But this is a wake up moment to say, hey, there's some leverage here that nobody ever did before, but is now being placed, and you should be aware that that's going to be now in the minds, in the zeitgeist of all this.
Sure. So I'm saying the wake up, the red pill moments for me are the MLSs and the MLS executives, MLS staff, MLS leadership coming to like red pill, like, oh shit, we don't own this.
Okay.
Right. That's one. The second red pill moment is all the brokers and agents going,
yeah, I agree
oh shit, we don't actually have any control here.
Yeah.
Right. And then maybe there's a third red pill moment, like maybe it's associating, oh shit, we could sell the MLS for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's it's an asset that might be declining in value. So maybe we want to sell it like now, you know?
Yeah.
While it's still worth something. That's all. There's so much chaos. We're still a lot unknown, but that would be my big
and like I mentioned
takeaways.
a firm that I thought was the best candidate of this, who it is, but I mean I could be completely wrong about that. So I mean,
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Very interesting, man. Very interesting. Look, it's like we had the world conspires to give us topics to keep talking about.
I know, it's like I swear to God, it seems like okay, and I think there's still a lot to go on the settlement with forms and things like that.
Yes,
but this could be the next what MLSs are being bought, how are they being bought, who
I
are
know,
buying.
right?
I mean, this could be just like 2025 and beyond. Oh my God, I hope not. But yeah.
All right. So before we leave, I do need an update from you. How's the weight loss, the murder board journey going?
Well, okay, so I'm going to have to delay by a week because I want to use the same scale, and I'm in my sister's house, so I'm going to have to. I didn't weigh myself. I usually weigh myself on the Fridays we do this, so
All right.
I didn't bring it up here, so
Okay.
I'm going to do that now. Of course, we're having a barbecue tomorrow, but we'll see what happens.
You have the barbecue, dude. 72-hour water fast. I'm telling you, let's get it done.
Well, I told you, like, we ought to do it together. So
I'm
Pick
down.
a date.
I'm down.
All right, we'll pick a date then. We'll pick dates. All right.
We should get a sponsor
Yeah. Okay.
for like every day that we do. You're going to donate something to, I don't know, some charity.
Yeah. Okay.
Let us know if you think it's a good idea, everybody.
Yeah.
By the way, we still haven't heard from our listeners about the whole. We're thinking of doing more live stream type stuff. So another ask, like, let us know if that sounds good to you. If not, then we'll keep doing what we're doing. But
yeah, and I got to say, I want to say hello to a new watcher, Nancy. I heard that you're watching the podcast now, so welcome. Glad to see you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to take off. Ciao.